I have no, I don't know, like I definitely know that I think Gretchen Rubin talks about it in her, have you ever taken her, have you ever read any of her shit?
No.
Happiness. She wrote a book about happiness. She's like the happiness New York Times writer. And she's got a podcast. She's got great shit, but she wrote a book a while ago. I think it was called like something like the Happiness Project. And she came up with these 4 tendencies, like the way you take action based on your perception of what's in of who you're doing it for.
Mm-hmm.
And there are four areas. One's a rebel, one's a obliger, one is I don't remember what the 4 are, but I got a lot of value from that. Like I tend to be an obliger is someone who lives up to things when it's for others.
Mm-hmm.
When it's for myself, I don't know. It's really weird though, because like I run my morning routine religiously, and there's nobody there to tell me what to do. There's nobody there to tell me to get out of bed. There's nobody there to, although my morning schedule dictates how much time I spend. My mornings, like the fact that I have a meditation group that starts at 7:45 dictates the length of time that I will do each thing for. Like I'll cut my run a little bit short, or I'll do my yoga for 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes, or I'll do my run, meditation. I don't change. But, because I need to leave room to make coffee and have coffee so that I get to my group on time. But that's another interesting thing, because that group's a free group, and I'm not on time for that. I'm on time sometimes, but I everybody knows it's a Facebook group. I go live. There's nobody waiting for me per se, but they kind of are.
Yeah.
And I've said that I've wanted it to feel for me loose. Like I want to enjoy showing up because I want to show up, not for it to feel like an obligation, a work obligation, that I have a appointment at a certain time. And so for the last year in doing that, it's felt really good. Like I'm never more than 5 minutes late. And for me, that creates a looseness that somehow my brain associates with maybe freedom,
mm-hmm.
or funness, not too serious. Somehow those are connected for me. The Marines were incredibly serious. You're not, 5 minutes, you're on time and you're 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late.
Right.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I'm either early, which is on time for me,
mm-hmm.
or I'm not fucking there at all.
I've been on the receiving end of not there at all. I don't take it personally because I know you, and I know you don't, whatever. It's just you being you.
If I'm not there right when you get there, the likelihood is I'm not running late.
Right.
Something has gone wrong. I've forgotten, or something else came up and I didn't reach out to you because I forgot.
I think you're right. Every time that I've shown up and like I'm in your meeting room waiting to talk with you, it's either you're already in with somebody else and you double booked, or you're fucking driving somewhere and didn't remember that we were meeting, or every time. There's never been hold on, I'm on my way.
Right. No. Right. So when you get here, if more than 90 seconds goes by, you might as well leave.
Isn't it interesting the different ways we have of I don't know, organizing our lives, you know, like um showing up for things or
Yeah, by the way, it doesn't make me feel good for that to happen. Like
no, of course not.
I don't intend on these things. Just the
It
same
doesn't
way.
make me, and it doesn't make me feel good to show up 5 minutes late. Like
Right.
I don't feel
Right.
good about it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Weird, right?
it is weird. And I also don't have any desire or intention to do anything about it.
Right. Me neither.
It doesn't bother me that much, even though it does bother me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, Annie, is it gives us space to show who we are at a certain level, which
Mhm.
means that we're having the freedom to say who we are without having to go through the thing to say who we are.
Right.
Right.
There is a level of authenticity that actually it
Totally.
provides. Yeah.
I think so.
It's interesting, Ken, because my experience of you, there's a looseness about you that I really like.
Mhm.
And I think that if you tried to wedge yourself into a always on time, every time box, you wouldn't show up the same way. There's a funness, there's an easiness. Like, probably that's why we connect so well, because I have the same thing. It just shows up in a little different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I say, I'm I'm always on time, and if I'm not, I'm not going to be there.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Something's
But you're not always on time.
well, but I'm always on time.
I was just reading. So in my coaching program that I'm in, we had a guest speaker named Devin Bandison. I always get his name wrong. Bandison, not Brandison. And he was chatting in a Facebook group and sent a link to this audio about integrity. That do you know who Werner Erhard is?
No.
He was a founder of EST back in the day.
Okay.
Erhard Training Systems. Erhard EST. Erhard Seminar Training, I think, is what it stood for, which morphed into Landmark Education and the Landmark Forum. And he's still.
I have a funny story about that. I'll tell you.
Okay. But the video is about integrity. The video, he's doing corporate work now. He's doing work at Harvard. He's not anymore any part of Landmark or that, but he it's very heady. It's brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. But I just this morning came across this 60-page PDF from a presentation he did. He makes everything he does public. Like it's pretty cool how open he is to sharing the stuff that he's doing. And one of the things that, and I've only watched it or read about 20 of the slides, but one of the interesting parts I'm on right now is where he's talking about how being your word doesn't mean being perfect. Being in integrity doesn't mean being imperfect. And in fact, some of the best experiences that people report having is when someone's not their word, but there's a willingness then to clean it up. Mm. Like there's a willingness to take responsibility for not being your word and to say, right, hey, I wasn't my word. I'm sorry. This is kind of like what we just did. Yeah. Which is interesting, like, because sometimes I get caught up in the perfection mindset that you have to be perfect to have integrity. Like integrity means that's what that means. And that sets up an impossibility that is not possible. Right. And it doesn't, and what he's saying, I think, at least from 20 of the 60 or 70 pages I've read so far, is that nothing could be further from the truth. That's not what integrity is. So it's pretty cool.
Integrity only happens when you can show that you have integrity to clean up a mess that you had a part in creating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And it's the other way too. Like we had a meeting at 9 o'clock or 9:15 or whatever the time it is. And I'm showing up on time. That's integrity too. They're both integrity.
right. Yeah. And if you didn't, like you wrote me, sorry, I was getting coffee. That's what I assumed.
Right.
And the other part of it for me was like, well, maybe Andy's going to do something else, and he just bought me some free time. That's awesome.
Right. I look at that too. A lot of times, like there have been times when I actually hope someone doesn't show up. Like I could really use this hour.
I remember in the old days pulling up to the gym because I used to always be there early in the morning at like 5:30 in the morning. And I'd find myself driving there and going like, fuck, I hope no one shows up today.
Yes, me too.
And then I pull around the corner and I see the fuckers are already lined up at the front door, and I'm like,
damn it.
How, like, come on now. What are you guys doing here?
Totally. Dude, yeah. I remember back in the day, I think some of the joy and the fun of running the gym was in the fact that I had so little of my shit together. Like I there was no big master plan. There was no big programming template that I was using to guide people through this masterful fucking thing.
Making was it up as you went along.
I mean, it was funny because they used to joke about it after about a year of doing this. It was the joke was, Andy really has no idea what he's going to do when the class starts. He just sends everybody out on a run, and during the run, he fucking figures out what the hell they're going to do, and he puts something up on the whiteboard.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. That was exactly right.
Yeah.
There was one day, the only thing I could come up with was 30 minutes of pull-ups. Ready, go. that was the workout.
Wow.
People left that day with bloody hands.
Right. And rhabdo in their back.
Yeah, I mean, I was smart enough to scale it appropriately for people who were physically capable of doing enough that would cause that kind of damage.
Yeah.
Because not everybody, if you're not fit enough, you can't really give yourself rhabdo. You just can't do anymore.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I was smart enough to not.
Yeah. I'd be the guy that hadn't been in a while. I could do a lot of pull-ups, and I'd be the guy that would do a lot of pull-ups and then walk out of there and not be able to.
Yeah. We had a guy who was a firefighter who hadn't been in the gym. He went to firefighting academy actually after he had been a member for a while, and he came back, and we were doing we would do these challenges that we would either pick one of the girls to do, or name your own, whatever you wanted to do or whatever. And it was the Angie 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. And he gave himself rhabdo. He was in the hospital for, I don't know, 6 days, 7 days, a while.
Well, that's always how it is, right? It's someone who's got a level of fitness, but hasn't been, hasn't pushed themselves into those levels for a while, and they don't know how to ramp up to it, and they just go. They just
throw themselves into the fire and go as hard as they can. And I mean, I came close a couple times. I couldn't uncurl my arms more than like this. I had like T-Rex arms.
Yeah.
For days on end.
Not funny, but funny.
Yes. Exactly. Well, you've heard Glassman's story about the balls swelling up, right? The dude's
from doing GHDs.
From the GHDs, yeah. Funny, not funny.
Funny, definitely not funny.
No.
Well, and then wasn't there was a recently programmed, you probably didn't follow it, and I barely do, but a recently programmed GHD workout for the Open.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it was like 100 and some GHD sit-ups.
Wow.
Anyone in the know was like, not a good idea.
Right. Was that in the open? That was in the open for everybody?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so obviously nowadays you can scale and do all these things, but
Yeah, but people that don't know any better don't know any better.
right. Yeah.
I mean, we had people that knew better. We had a girl who knew better, and she decided to do a double Annie, which was 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 sit-ups and double unders. And she decided to do a double Annie on the GHD. This was over the Christmas holiday, where nobody was, it was only, it was a very small crew, and she was by herself. She wasn't by herself, but there was only one coach in the, kind of supervising.
300 GHDs.
300 Gs. Yeah, she was in the hospital for a week. Yeah. Other people try to talk her out of it. So she's like, no, I'm ready for this, and
I am not unhappy to not be in that world anymore.
Yeah, me too. You were going to tell me a funny story about Landmark.
Yeah. So a member at my gym, he and his wife and a couple of colleagues that would, they were all members at my gym. Their company used Landmark as like a teaching tool.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it. They talked about it, and I knew nothing about it. And there's a point in Landmark where you get to a certain level, and you got to, basically reach out to those that you feel like you have unfinished.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
So these guys decided to leave the gym, go somewhere else, and they did it in not a very nice way. And I had no clue why they felt that way, and tried to reach out and find out like what was the issue. And
how big was the group that left?
Like 5 people. It wasn't a big.
Okay.
It was just all their close guys.
Yeah.
And I would see them afterwards posting about wherever they ended up going and saying all these stuff, positive things about the other gym.
Yeah.
I was like, why won't they, respond? And I think part of it in the end was that he felt that he was letting me down by leaving.
Yep.
And he didn't know how to explain it. So that integrity thing was in question there, right?
Right.
Anyway, so jump ahead, I don't know, a year or so. I get this unsolicited call from him. Hey, be really great to hook up and have a beer together. I'd love to see you. I'm like, sure. That was going to be helpful for me to like take the weight of what happened, and understand. So we sat down and having a beer, and he's talking about all these, things, and how, he's part of a program, and he felt like, he's supposed to reach out to a certain amount of people and, make amends. And he talked about how he did it with his mother and someone else in his family and so on and so on. And then he got, so the reason why I asked you, because I feel like I, need to make amends with you. We didn't finish on a very good note, and it was entirely my fault. I'm like, oh man, I really appreciate that, because I really didn't know what happened. It's not really important at this point, but I felt like I did something wrong. And anyway, so it was nice. I was like, this is like a good men's moment where we can move on and bond and all that stuff. And then he started trying to sell me on Landmark. And I'm like, whoa.
That is the most misguided, misused, the worst part about Landmark is that whole tool about enrollment.
I said, you might as well just take back everything you said. Right. None of it was fucking authentic, and I'm out of here. See you later.
Right.
Paid the bill and I left.
That sucks.
Oh. So that's my story about Landmark. I hear people talking about it, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
No interest.
It's, it's funny. It's really, an important part of the training is the enrollment piece, but enrollment doesn't mean what they're trying to do is to get people to use the training at Landmark as a way to enroll their as a tool that creates the environment that allows people to get practice and training in enrollment. And enrollment is when you tell a story that has someone else touched, moved, or inspired in a way that causes them to want to take action. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take action toward doing Landmark. Maybe it does. And inviting them to come to see it is, could be okay, depending on how you do it and depending on your insistence. But I think the problem for most people who are new to it, and they have you do this in the first training in the Landmark Forum, you're doing it in the first time you're ever around it, is that people forget that the most important part, which is enrollment in your life and how you're touch, moved, and inspired, how it's touch, moved, and inspire you, and how it's not about getting them to do it too.
Right.
It's kind of like the used car salesman who forgets that the way he can do his job best is to help someone feel great about whatever it is they're there to buy, and to inform them and to give them a good experience rather than to try to sell them a car.
Yeah.
And it puts a really it puts a really bad taste in people like yours mouth. And there's a lot of really valuable training that's available through Landmark. It's really phenomenal.
Yeah,
but
sure.
when you have a bad experience with someone who's done that, the tendency is to say, fuck you, I'm not interested, I'm out, and
but I just that wasn't the time.
Right 100%. It made it completely inauthentic.
I'm like, this is great that you, like, before he said what he said, I was like, this is awesome that you found something that allowed you to see your past with clarity, and if you felt like there was parts that were unfinished, you're doing all the right work, so congrats, it's great.
Yeah.
And then
right no, it makes it taints the water. It makes it so that hey, was that first part just in order to sell me on this next thing?
Right. That's what it felt like.
Right, which is not. I will tell you 100% that's not what his intention was. There's no question to me, because I know the training and I've gone through years of that stuff. That's not what he was trying to communicate to you, even though that's how it came out.
I'm pretty certain he sat there and was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What have I done?
Yeah. He fucked it up. I fucked it up with my wife. I did the same thing with Julia. This is when I think we were still just dating, and I wanted her to do it like crazy. And so I came home and I drank the Kool-Aid and I was on fire, and she finally caved in. She's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll go. She went, and by the time she got to the point where she had to do that, she's like, this is a fucking cult, I'm out. I'm like she was so triggered by the idea that she had to, in order to complete, she felt she had to share it with other people. She was ashamed of herself. It caused years of bad blood between the two of us. To this day, I mention Landmark and she's like, fuck you. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. I tend not to get involved in too many things like that have the potential for that. I'd rather do things like this where I have someone that I admire, someone that has inspired things in me over the years, someone that I trust,
Yep.
someone that I feel is a good listener. That's more appropriate for me. And like, if you can bring, if you can bring 5 or 6, 7, 8, whatever people like that around, and then that becomes your group, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
My Zen teacher was an early student of Werner's, Werner Erhard. Werner was the founder, of that whole thing, and he was training to be a Zen. I don't know if he was training to be a Zen teacher, but he was just training in the Zen world with Maizumi Roshi, who was one of the very early teachers here in the United States of the Zen tradition. And at the same time, he was deeply embedded in training with Werner. He was like Werner's right hand man. He was like Werner's assistant, or I don't exactly know what his title was. But at one point, it became too intense to do both. They're very similar. The Zen philosophy and what Werner was teaching were very much aligned. And but at one point he had to make a choice. He's like, okay, these paths are they're not diverging, but it's too much to try to do both at the same time. And he chose the Zen path rather than the landmark path. And he was on track. He could have been one of the landmark form leaders, one of the big old leaders who've been doing it for 30 years, and he just chose the Zen route.
Yeah. When I hear Zen, I think immediately like Buddhism, which is one following, I would call it, I guess, that I'm intrigued by. Mm-hmm. Having spent a fair bit of time in Asia and being with lots and lots of Buddhists, not monks too, but like general practitioners. And man, what a nice way to be.
Yep.
Like, I'm sure there's some not so good things about it, but from what I've witnessed, it's
a philosophy. It's, like I think it's funny that we lump Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam and Christianity. We lump them all into this ideal of religion, and they're really not.
no.
In my opinion. I mean, like, I don't know enough about Hinduism to know if maybe that is. I don't know, but Buddhism has nothing to do with control or laws or rules. It's really find your own, find the truth for yourself. Find who you are inside. It's really a philosophy, not a religion.
Yeah, we for a while every year we were going to Thailand and riding dirt bikes with a guide through the backcountry of Thailand, Laos,
cool.
Myanmar, all everywhere. And the guy that we always go with is a Buddhist, but he's a Buddhist, but he drinks and
Buddhists can drink. It's okay. In fact, Bill, my teacher, used to talk about how Maizumi Roshi was just a drunk. I mean, he drank like he's like a Roshi's pretty freaking high up. And he was a big drinker.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was always interesting because we'd be out riding and maybe getting to something that's challenging, like some kind of crazy uphill. And the bikes we were on were 250s, but sort of like on-road, off-road kind of things.
Uh-huh.
Not like the ones we have at home where it's like lots of power and pretty much get over everything. So sometimes it's a little bit challenging, and every once in a while I'd fall over or get stuck or something, and I would get angry, like frustrated, angry. Mm-hmm. And the look on his face, because they don't have anger, right? They don't raise their voices. It was like full panic. He didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it was always interesting to me, and it put me in a better mindset. He Crystal and I took Crystal's parents on a trip.
Uh-huh.
Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar,
Oh, wow, cool.
Wow. All over. And her dad, Crystal's dad, rode. We got him a bike, and he rode with us. Her mom rode in the catch vehicle because she doesn't ride a bike. But anyway, so one day our guide's like, okay, I want to take you on, this one ride that you guys have been on before. It should be great. And we get into the middle of the jungle, and it starts to rain, and the ground underneath you turns to snot.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And then areas of the trail wash away.
Yep.
And not like a little bit.
Yeah.
Very significant. And this should have taken us 2 hours to do this portion. 10 hours in, I was starting to lose my patience.
Wow.
And the guy's name is Ek. He decides he's going to go ahead and get some help. Crystal, at this point, has basically burned out the clutch on her bike. She leans it up against the tree and she goes, "I'm walking out." Like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
So he's gone. Crystal's walking. Her dad's still having fun, and I'm nervous because I dragged these guys out there.
Yeah, right.
And Crystal's mom's back at the hotel, probably wondering what the heck's going on. We're 10 hours. Well, at this point, we're 8 hours late.
Yeah, right.
Country she doesn't know anything about. So
you're covered from head to foot in dirty, muddy, red, like clay, mud, slippery. Yeah.
And leeches.
Yep.
So, I think Ake left us there because he just couldn't handle how frustrated I was beginning to get.
Yeah.
And then he left, and I was like, well, I'm not going to pussyfoot around with this anymore. I'm just full throttle, and whatever I hit. And all of a sudden, it just started to get easier and faster, and then I started to have fun. And
what about Crystal?
Well, she would walk up a portion, and then we double on certain portions. And
okay, so you didn't leave her behind.
No. She had the year before she had torn her ACL on a ride. So she was a little nervous about doing it again. So that was
and the bike you didn't worry about, like Ek went back.
They sent somebody back to get it.
Right.
Anyway, so we got to the end, and the rest of the crew was there. They had tents set up, food was cooking, but we were so late, they were absolutely smashed. They'd been drinking all afternoon. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. And I get there and they've done a nice job. I'm like, let's get the hell out of here. Pack up, I'm ready to go. And Crystal and her dad were insistent, like, let's sit down and enjoy. I'll see if I can find a picture for you of that last moment. It was.
I've been to the jungles. So in Panama and in the Philippines, it's unbelievable how the jungle, like if you get in a helicopter and you go above the jungle, it looks really amazing. Like it looks peaceful, it looks green and lush and like gorgeous. And then you get down on the ground, and as long as you're not trying to move anywhere, it is green and luscious and beautiful and, a little dangerous because you got these animals and snakes and, God knows what else is around there. But the minute you try to go anywhere, I don't know if this is every jungle, but the jungles I've been to, the topography is so radical, so steep, and so treacherous. and there's so much vegetation that you almost can't see where you're going to take the next step when you're trekking, especially if you're trekking off a trail. And it is, you look, okay, well, we got a mile to go, and you think, okay, well, if I was at home in the desert, that would take me 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll triple that. It should take an hour. You gotta like 8 times that, like like 1 mile across country in the jungle is asininely ridiculous.
You understand.
Oh yeah, it's insane. And then if it rains, forget about it. You can't even stand up. It's like ice.
So this is at the end of that day.
Love it.
I'm
Love it.
like, ugh. And like
Yeah.
the mud, like
Yeah.
I look like a different person. The level of mud and the heat and humidity, it was just
Yeah.
like, ugh. And he didn't pack any water. He when he went ahead, he came back with help, and it was a kid with flip flops on a scooter with some Coca-Cola.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I mean, it was always a joke in adventure racing. You'd have a mountain bike leg, and invariably you'd be in a warm climate. And you'd also be on fire roads most of the time. It wasn't like technical mountain biking typically. And 9 times out of 10, it would start raining, and the rain would turn to clay, and it would be like red clay. And, you'd be on a 40-mile mountain bike leg, and 37 miles of it, you were hiking, and you were pushing your bike. Your bike wheels wouldn't turn because the mud would pile up inside the, where the brakes are. And so they would literally be frozen. You'd be carrying your bike over your head. It was the most miserable. They almost should have eliminated mountain biking, or called it just trek with your bike.
My mountain bike carry.
Trekking, yeah. Mountain bike carry trekking.
Yeah.
Because it was just miserable. You shouldn't even bother putting your bike together, because
Right.
it's not going to work anyway.
Yeah. I had this idea at one point that I'm sure you heard of death races before.
Yeah.
Like they're so difficult.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create one, and it was all full of like mental challenges you had to figure out, and like you had to climb this crazy hill, read something that was sequential, go back down to the bottom and be able to recite it accurately. If not, you got to go back up.
Right.
You have your mountain bike, but there's no chain on it. At that point, you've gotta dive into a water hole and find a flag that's yours that has your chain attached to it, and then figure out how to put your chain on because you don't have a chain brake, and how to start a fire with no, all this stuff, right? Yeah. I always thought that would be
there's a guy that's done that on the East Coast. I can't remember what he called it, but he prided himself on the fact that, I don't know, 1% of the people finish it. 1 or 2%. It's a tiny number. And there's another race that I think it's called the Berkey Marathon. That's none of that stuff. It's just a mental fuck. So the race I think it's a 5K or a 4K loop through the wilderness. It's all through the wilderness. It's marked. It's marked.
Yeah.
You can lose your way, but you start every hour on a new loop. And so every hour a new lap begins. And when you fall behind if you fall out of the sequence and you can't keep up with the pace, you're out. And so the winner is the person that outlasts everybody else. So you don't know how long it's going to be. You don't know how many hours it's going to be, or how many days it's going to go, or how many miles you're going to run. The fast people will finish a lap in around, maybe it's not 5K, maybe it's 4K. I think they finish in like 40 minutes. And so every hour they get 20 minutes of rest. And
That's the shitty part right there.
yeah, it's the shitty part. I mean, it's
The rest, because then you have the energy to do it again.
yeah, or not. It's too short rest to really get good rest.
Right.
I mean, but there's some ridiculous, people doing 160 miles, 260 miles. I mean, like 60 hours of making it. It's insane. That it's all mental toughness because you don't have any endpoint. You don't know when's the last lap. Don't know. When's the person next to you gonna cave in?
Right.
Stop.
And they probably don't know how many people are still left in.
No, they do, because it's just you have to start on this. There's a starting line every hour. You have to see who makes it to the start line is a big thing. They ring a cowbell like, I don't know, a minute before, 2 minutes before, and people have to make their way to the start line, and who's in based on that start bell.
Well, then there's hope. Whereas I think if you didn't know how many people were left.
Yeah, that would be even harder. That's like Survivor, not knowing if
Right.
who's out. Yeah.
That would be interesting.
That would be even harder. You just got to keep going and assume that everybody's in. Yeah, that would be like that show we watched a bunch during COVID. I think it's called Alone.
Oh yeah.
It's up in Canada. They do it up in Canada. It's phenomenal. Yeah, but you have no idea if anybody's still in or not.
Do you remember the guy who won and he killed that musk ox?
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God.
With a knife, right?
With a musk ox.
Yeah, like insane. I've never seen a musk ox, but it looks gnarly. It's what, 1,000 pounds, 2,000 pounds?
Yeah, they're not a small animal. And
yeah. And they're not like a cow. They're actually, they could kill you for sure.
Yeah. They're like a buffalo or a bison, whatever, but with a lot of hair on them.
And horns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And their way of defending themselves is to ram you.
Right.
And this guy's like,
he was a beast. Remember when he built his hut? It was made of stone, and you thought, this guy's crazy. When he was building that thing, I just kept thinking he could live there for centuries. In that the things.
What I think like his plan was, I'm making this thing bulletproof so I can be here forever.
Yeah.
He was like that was the issue with the show for me in that particular season, was that guy was so far and above everyone else.
I thought so too.
Struggling to make everyone look like they were even in the game.
Yes. Yeah, some of those numbnuts who went without a weapon. Like, are you kidding? This is survival. Like, I get you have this idea that you might be able to survive on berries alone, but you're dealing with cold weather. In summer you're going to be fine, but when the weather gets cold and there's no vegetation, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you're a moron. Like, don't be a moron. I mean, even I know that. I'm not saying that I would do any better, because I'm not a survivalist, but I can at least tell that you should have a weapon.
I'd have been 2 days in and go, okay, where's the 4 seasons now?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I need a bath. I just had this flash of thought, of wondering how cool it would be to be able to have some piece of technology that could graphically show the flow of a conversation from start to end. Like, what did we talk about?
I have no idea.
Religion,
integrity, landmark, Werner Erhard, mountain biking and adventure races, going to Thailand, motorcycling, mud, jungle.
Right? And it started off with, why are you late?
Yeah, right. Huh.
Isn't that neat?
I wonder what that would look like what that would, it's almost like a mind map, like a weird with branches and,
Well, you probably know this about me. When I am working with someone with on their business, I see everything in pictures,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so I graphically map it out and then work backwards.
yep, yep.
Um, so that's kind of like be kind of like that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or yeah.
I've been doing some deep diving into the Hindu, have you ever heard of the time measurement system called the Yugas?
No.
I don't know enough about it yet to really speak intelligently about it, but the Yugas were a system of time that were developed by the ancients, like we're talking 15,000 years ago. And it's based in, this one guy came up with a measurement that is literally like so close to the actual speed of light that how the fuck did he came up with, like if you take his measurement, which is a different language and but if you do the calculations to convert it to 186,000 miles per second, it comes out to like 185,000 miles per second. Like, what? How? And so when they were creating models for time, it was based on diameters. It was based on breathing cycles and heart rate and how that related to cycles that they saw in the universe, and how how the earth is on an angle and it wobbles, and the short cycle yuga is something like 25,000 years, and it's the cycle around which it takes the earth to get back to the same spot it was in 25,000 years before. And that's based on the measurement of the exact position of the astrological sign in the stars on the autumnal equinox. It's fascinating, man. It's like, we in the Western way of thinking, we it's very difficult to put to come up with a way that, like, the pyramids or Stonehenge were possible. Like, how is that possible that they were able to do this? And yet in the Yuga, in this system, I don't even know what this whole system's called, but in that way of thinking, human civilization has gone through a degradation over the past 12,000 years into kind of a darkness where we don't have the same capacity to communicate, to think, to move things. Like they're talking about how when we're in the cycle, at the top of the cycle, we're able to communicate with telepathy, perhaps, or we're able to utilize whole elements of communication that we don't have any ability to do. We've lost that ability as we've moved through this cycle, and we're cycling up. We're on the uptick, but it's going to take another, like 5,000 or 6,000 years to get there. And in the Hindu religion, it doesn't matter, because you're reincarnated, and that's just part of your life. Like, one life doesn't really matter, because death isn't something to fear, because you just move into the next life.
You may have taken this conversation too far now, Andy.
Dude, we got another 4 minutes, so we can handle the whole fucking meaning of the universe in 4 minutes. What the hell? I can't get enough. I was showing it to my son yesterday, some of it. And one of the things he was saying was that this math is very funky math, which if you take the diameter of the sun and you multiply it by 108, you get the distance from the center of the sun to Earth. Well, there's also 108. It's very weird how he relates it to the number of breaths you take in a minute, or the number of times your heart beats typically in a minute. And it's all based on that 108. That 108 is a very sacred number. So anyway, I'm going a little cuckoo.
Look, I am a firm believer in what you put out comes back. And, I believe you can, I hate all of these terms and words, but like, I believe you can manifest anything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that, in a more businessy sense, I believe that if you understand how you show up and deliver value, and you just do that all the time, that much value will return. But if you focus on the return value, you will go nowhere. Well, it'll be very muted anyway.
Right.
Right. It's a short-lived, finite process. Whereas I like to much more live by an infinite process in my mind.
Like this is interesting you say that, because one of the things that the gurus are talk about is how if just think about this, if every person in the world, and this is what they mean by we came from a place of higher consciousness, if every person in the world started to make the importance of one other person more important than themselves, like not more important from the standpoint that you make yourself worse by elevating someone else, but just the service of another person and their best interest became of primary importance. So everyone had somebody else's back. I had your back, you had your wife's back, your wife had and that was the universal way of being. If everybody shifted that way, none of what we experience in the world today would exist. None of the fighting, because there would be a universal consciousness around service of others. And it would change the whole landscape. And like that, and right now in the world we live in, that doesn't really seem feasible, possible, because there's only a few people doing it, but I wonder, it occurs to me that perhaps that is as we move into the next phase, the next part of this cycle back toward the light, maybe that's the next piece.
When you look at Elon Musk and what he's accomplished,
mm-hmm.
You see him a man of service?
Yeah, I do.
I do too. When you look at
there's a level of service, but there's also a level of intense material success for himself. I don't think he operates that way, but it shows up. It shows up that way.
Kind of hard not to when you got $200 billion.
Right.
But I mean, did you know that he just sold all of his properties?
No.
Doesn't want a house anymore. He doesn't own one. He just rents.
What's he doing with all the money?
I don't know what he did with it, but and yeah, I mean, he lives pretty simply.
Yeah.
During the time when Tesla was in trouble, he lived at the office.
Yeah, he's kooky. He's definitely a radical. They say that the zone, the area, the cycle we're in is all about energy. Like it's no coincidence that Einstein figured out how to create the bomb, and we're like everything right now is about energy and how we're using energy, and that's this cycle. That's part of this.
Let me ask you the next one then. Jeff Bezos created Amazon, a lot of wealth.
Yep.
Is he a man of service?
Yep.
I don't think he is.
Huh, interesting.
I don't think he created anything fucking important. And I think all he did was he moved a pile of money from a bunch of companies that were independent.
Yep.
Put moved it all to his platform.
Yeah.
And said, "Screw you! I don't care if you fail."
It's funny because I see that as a great service. I don't see that as it doesn't mean that there's not negative consequences of that, but I look at it in my life and it's an incredible service to me. I mean, I don't know what I would do if COVID was happening and there was no Amazon. I don't know what the hell I would have done.
You'd have more money in your bank account.
Yeah, but I would also, yes, that's true.
I agree with you. I think there's a level of convenience that was created by it, but I don't believe in his mind. I don't believe he's a man of genuine service to people.
I don't know him well enough to know. Like I look at both Bezos and Elon Musk as driven to, I don't think Elon Musk is doing it just to be of service. I don't think there's a purity of service in his way of being. I think he does it because it's part of his ethos. And I think Jeff Bezos does too. Even though the products are incredibly different.
Yeah. If you listen to Musk speak, what he talks about is, I chose to look at problems and how to solve some problems that would have the most benefit to humanity. That's what he talks about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know.
But it's interesting. Is what Amazon's doing a benefit to humanity? And I mean, like, I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer, because you could.
I think you could go both ways. You probably could with both of them, but it's an interesting.
I mean, just like you can with Facebook, just like you can with Apple, just like you can with all these fucking things. Like, if we had the ability to do mental telepathy, we wouldn't need a goddamn iPhone. So why don't we get there already?
Well, that's what Musk is working on.
Mental telepathy?
Yeah, with Neuralink.
Well, I mean, I think he can work on it till the cows come home, but it's going to take another 5,000 years before everybody's able to do it.
He's already there. Have you never heard of Neuralink?
No.
Look it up. Just Elon Musk Neuralink. Yeah, there's an implant that they're putting in, and people are like,
I don't want no fucking implants. Jesus Christ.
No, neither do I. But I mean,
oh my God.
You listen to him.
Have you seen Dark? What's that show called? Dark Cloud, Dark Sky, Dark. God, it's not called. It's basically you take advances in technology and you take them out, you extrapolate them out into the future, and there's massive darkness.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, it's I had to stop watching it. It scared me. It was fucking way too scary.
If you want to learn about how Elon thinks about it, watch it's either his first or second interview with Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Those are worth listening to. I don't know if you're.
I love Joe Rogan. The problem I have is that he's so prolific that I can't keep up. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know which ones to listen to. And Spotify is a horrendous podcast player. I mean, it is. Would you agree with the?
Yeah, totally.
It's just, I mean, I cannot it's great for making playlists. I love it for music. I love Spotify, but podcasting, it is not built for that. They need a completely new way to do it. And it's really a disservice to the really value that Joe Rogan and Brene Brown is on it now. And
oh yeah,
I mean, it sucks. Totally sucks.
I listened to A Bit of Optimism by Simon Sinek the other day with Brene Brown.
Is he on Spotify, or you mean she's interviewing him for her podcast?
No, it's his podcast called A Bit of Optimism.
Oh, got it.
Really good. It's worth a listen. And he did one with the girl from Spanx.
Oh yeah.
Also,
because she's married to Jesse, the guy that trained with David Goggins for a month.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Both worth actually most of his things are Simon's stuff is worth a listen to.
Is he on Spotify or is he on regular podcast?
Podcast.
Yeah, that's good.
Called A Bit of Optimism. I think you'd like it.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just heard that Apple's new podcast upgrade creates more problems than it started. Like it's just a horrendous upgrade. I use a player called Overcast. I don't use Apple.
You know what I use? I click on the link and whatever pops up. If it plays, it plays. If it
do it on the website.
Yeah, it's like
like SoundCloud or something.
Yeah, I'm useless with all that technology. I'm agnostic. If it plays, great. If it doesn't, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. We'll have an amazing.
This has been a great convo and a funny. We need that map. We need that map of the conversation because I took it off the rails at the 47-minute point.
I think it went off the rails right from the get-go. It's always the way it is.
It was a really, and I had no agenda coming into it. Zero.
Me neither. My agenda was on minute 1 after, so at 10:16, my agenda was to bust your balls for being late.
Yeah, right. There it is.
And frankly, it backfired because then it turned out for me to have to admit that sometimes I just don't show up.
That's right. Just wanted to know one.
Yeah, I'm going to go and do some construction. So
have a good day.
I'll see you. Oh, you know what I realized just this moment?
No.
I left my tools outside and it's pouring rain.
Oh, shit.
That's good. Skill saw.
Oh,
drill.
no. Electric tools?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Like battery operated ones.
Those are nice ones.
I think it'll still work.
Yeah. Well, you should dry them off first.
Maybe. I'll see you later.
All right, man. See ya. Have a great day.